Jesus girl. Jesus girl. Hey, it's the diary of a Jesus girl. Let the wings of the Spirit of the Lord just a swirl. You are in it, but you know you're not a part of this world. And for the swine, you should never cast your pearl. Yes, it's just the diary of a Jesus girl. The diary of a Jesus girl. Welcome to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast, where we discuss real-life issues of the committed Christian woman. This podcast will inspire you to love Jesus and impact lives like Jesus. And now it's time for your host, Crystal Day, award-winning author, speaker, and Christian coach.
Welcome to another episode of the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast with yours truly, Crystal Day, in the building. And we are in the month of November. Yes, we are, 6 weeks away from Christmas. 8 weeks away from the new year, and it's truly a pleasure that I get to come on and to share and to encourage and to interview amazing people on the podcast. And for November, I think I have a treat for you for November. I will be talking a lot about faith, right? So I'll be sharing faith stories in November, mainly because the 1st of December, the Purpose Planner will be coming out, and the Purpose Planner team are just telling you guys first what's the theme for the Purpose Planner, because I've not put it out there yet. It's unmovable faith. So that was what the Lord had placed on my heart, that unmovable faith is what will move the mountains moving forward in our lives 2023 and beyond. So kind of to get ready for the Purpose Planner to come out, I'll be interviewing persons all through the month, plus along with my own faith stories, to kind of help you to build that faith, that believing that when you have faith, that God will make your dreams come true. And sometimes these are dreams that we don't even dream. Come on now, like there are some dreams that you didn't even dream, but then He had placed those in your heart, and then you are just like, look at God. So we're starting the faith series this week with one of my dear sister. We're coming from high school. We have served on other boards, and I love her story of faith, her story of perseverance and resilience, coming from a very humble background. And I believe that her faith story will be able to help you to know that all things are possible for those who truly believe. And we're able, no matter where you're coming from, no matter how you have started, it doesn't matter, because we have faith to finish well. So with that being said, I am excited to have Dr. Tameka Stephenson-Harris in the building today on the podcast. Welcome, Tameka, to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast.
Thank you for having me, Crystal Day. It's a pleasure to be here today.
All right. So, as mentioned, Tameka is a medical doctor, right? She is married, and, we went to high school, the Convent of Mercy Academy together. Woo-hoo. Tameka serves on many boards. Tameka, really have just been a blessing, to every space that she's in. She shows up authentically as a Jesus girl. That's the first thing. And I think that was what, stood out for me. She's just an authentic Jesus girl, an ambitious Jesus girl. And, I want her to just share a little bit about her story, because again, we see her faith, that has helped to propel her into the woman that she is right now. So, Tameka, with that being said, I want to start the podcast with you telling us about your salvation story. What was life like before Christ? I'd love to know, what led you to Christ, and tell us a little bit about you.
Wow. Well, Crystal, as you shared earlier on in terms of Jesus, I would brand myself as a kingdom ambassador. Above everything else, what matters the most is that I am a child of the Most High God. And in terms of sharing my Christian journey, I would have to say that it started many moons ago. And I'm so happy that the Lord entered my life. What was my life before Christ? I would say it's one of a typical youngster in terms of one of those persons going to school, sometimes in terms of, getting into arguments, sometimes trying to defend yourself, and that may lead to other things like, for example, I think I can remember just about like 2 fights at school. And when you come to know God, you realize there's a different way of solving your problems and situations. Things changes. How do you cope? And that was really something that I really wanted to have changed in my life. Though I wouldn't have considered myself an aggressive person or so on, but I wanted that will to be able to stand irrespective of the many darts that they throw at you or throw at me. And so essentially, that was my life. My sisters would say, I'm a little wassy. They're like, Tameka in terms of with her mouth. So that is my life before Christ. In terms of coming to know Christ, I would say I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, at the age of 12. And this, for me, I have been pondering with it months before I actually took the water baptism. As you asked the question, I'm seeing myself right now going up to the podium because we were like cemented in Sunday school. That was like a ritual for us. We had to leave the house, go to Sunday school every Sunday morning, and of course, school throughout the week, and that would have been it. Because that's what my mother said. She had to give us school and church. That's what she had. And so in terms of going to church, the word started to become alive in me, and I wanted experiences. I tell you, testimony they are powerful to me. They have also moved me and my faith, and I enjoyed going to church and hearing testimonies from person. And one person would have shared their testimony. I was like, okay, wow, then God is able to do that. I mean, that's why I was a youngster sitting down and I would be thinking about, oh gosh, so she said she had no food in her cupboard and it just showed up. So it really happened, just as I would have heard on the television and so forth. And I wanted to experience that God for myself. And of course, being a Sunday school goer and going to church Sunday after Sunday ritually, the thing about it too was that I was actually hearing the word, and the word has become alive in me. And I was like, you know what? I want to give my life to the Lord. And I was there saying it. I would go to the altar Sunday after Sunday evening, when they asked for altar call, because I was there just making up my mind and say, God, yes, it's you. However, I remember one Christmas was New Year's Eve morning, early morning, as in the night, actually New Year's Eve night, close to New Year's morning. You normally go to the watch night service. No, of course, in my little home was myself and my other siblings. I think at the time I was the eldest one at home. My eldest siblings were not there. And so I waited up until my mommy came home, because mommy had a restaurant. And of course, within the night and so forth, you'll have a lot of food selling that would be, peak of her sale. And so she'd usually sell and then come home and we'd go to watch night service together. And I remember hushing one of my siblings in my hand, and another was there watching the television with myself. We're watching services online, and tears would just start to stream down my face. And I was like, this is it. Tonight, I'm going to tell. And at that time, we had our lovely Pastor Gordon, who was pastor in the Model Church of, and I was like, I'm going to tell Pastor Gordon tonight that I am ready and I want to be baptized. And so as soon as mommy came and she was getting ready to go up, that's one thing with my mother, she doesn't leave us as children inside the house alone. And so we all had to go, if you were sleeping or not, because she was going to watch night service. And we went, and I tell you, before the pastor could finish preach, as I told you, I made up my mind long before I got to service. And so when everything was finished, all said and done, and service was over, I met with the pastor and I said, I want to get baptized. And so since then, it has been a awesome feeling, knowing that I have come into a relationship with God, because I would say that is really what keeps me. It's knowing God for myself, and building that relationship actually had to do with me attending Sunday school and hearing the word, attending church services, and of course, being hunger in after the word, as well as one thing I would also like to share, because I know a lot of young persons do not like to attend this service, and that's prayer meeting. And that's one place where my prayer life was built and my faith was also increased. In fact, I remember another friend of mine, we were going to the same church at the time, and a friend of mine said to me, "No, Tameka, how do you decide which service to go to? Because, we have YPE, we have ladies ministry, we have men's ministry, and we have prayer meeting, and we have Sunday morning service, Sunday night service." And for me, it was YPE and prayer meeting. Now, it come to a point where at some point in time, I was like, if I'm going to miss even YPE, we're going to go and sing, and for the young people have a grand time and step out, I wanted to build my prayer life. And so I was now drawn to YPE. And I will tell you something, irrespective of the fact that we had, for so many persons, older persons at prayer meeting, for some reason, that desire that I have, knowing that it will be filled by going to prayer meeting, that did not rock me, that when I went there, I didn't see persons within my age group. I was there. I love challenges, and one of the other challenge that I was faced with is going to YP is that what we call Overseer Crawford, or late overseer. What he would have done is that everyone had to kneel down at the altar. And when you're kneeling there, everyone had to pray. And so initially, it was like something that was scary. My gosh, I'm going to have to pray out aloud. I wonder if I'm going to say the right thing. I wonder if it's going to sound. Because, as children coming home and, speaking to your parents and those who are older, if it doesn't sound the right way, I think it was formed properly, or if you said the scripture, you're wondering, how and what. And I've gone to the place where that really did not matter, whether it was short or long, because I have been reading the word and actually allowing the word to become a part of me. I knew that what really matters was my relationship with God, and that I was just really having a conversation with him. It's when I convinced myself of that, it really doesn't matter if the person before me prayed for 15 minutes and I did for 2, or I was able to pray for 10 minutes. Time was not a factor. I just wanted to just tell God everything. And I would say those times have really helped to build my prayer life and increase my faith, because I watched God work in my life and my family life. I would go day in, day out just to beseech the Father on behalf of myself and my family. Because as you shared, I'm from a humble beginning. I'm from the community of Greenwich Town. And of course, many nights and bright days. It was not easy. It was not nice to hear some of the things that were happening. And so it kept me going, as well as it gave me that hope and reassurance. And as you said, I would just be making dreams, writing dreams, speaking things, and I would just be whole. I said, God, you said if we ask, and you just go to him and remind. Those are the things that I practice.
Yes. So I want to jump in and thank you for sharing, and already you're dropping some nuggets about how to build your faith through prayer, through surrounding yourself with the right people, through even writing down your dreams. So I want you to share a little bit, because like you said, when we say humble, the truth is, most of the time is a poor background, sometimes not sure where the next meal will come from, what lunch money. So I'd love for you to kind of share with us, what were some of the dreams that you had, and like you said, growing up in inner city, the truth is people like us could have just chosen the other path, because we know a lot of persons in the inner city that where they know, they don't know Jesus. A lot of the women, have many kids. They don't know the baby father. Like, there's so much things that tend to surround us growing up in the inner city. And it's almost like sometimes people make it seem like, it's an escape, you know, like there's something special about us why we got away. But the truth is, it was a choice. You know, it was a choice that we had to make on a daily basis to choose to pursue the dreams, even though the resources weren't available. And I would love to share that little journey about some of the dreams that you had, and just transition into, okay, how that led you you know, to pursue education as your way out, etc.
So some of the dreams that I had include, and was big on my list, was wanting to get out of the inner city, wanting to move my family, my mother, from the inner city. Let me tell you something. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but what I knew is that there was something more outside. When I used to take the bus to school and I would see these houses, yes, it forms dream. I would see these houses up on a hillside, and they would be far away from what we thought would have been, you know, the guns and, you know, the war, the violent activity. And I would be like, one day I would like to live in one of those residential community. And what would have happened is that I used to swim for Alpha. When I go to swim training, and I would look across upon the hills, that would trigger these things. When I was even at university, and I started to, you know, see houses within communities such as Hope Pastures and, you know, other areas, Mona Heights and Jackson, and you start to fascinate and you start to dream of, you know, wanting to have something there and wanting to move my mother away from that. So I will tell you, top on my list. Sometime I would have gone home. I'll be like, Mommy, one day, I remember a sister of mine always said, one day, and she used to use the word, one day I'm gonna win the lotto. This was her remarks. I'm gonna win the lotto, and moved you away from it. It was like a competition wanting to say, I mean, we're not on the same age level, but then it's like we had similar desires because we realized just how hard my mom has been working for us. So I would say that was one of the top things. And because of that, it had driven me to want to succeed in terms of wanting to pass my exams, wanting to pass CXCs, wanting to get to university. And it has really, because of that, give me that drive to acquire these things. And one of the things too was that seeing some of the things in my community, such as teenage pregnancy, I've said it over and over, was that I did not want to fall into that category. And so one of the things was like also saying what it takes for somebody to be in that position. I will try my best not to do, so that I'm not caught in that position. That is a thing that we see in our environment. I'll be like, no, I would not want that to happen to me. All right, then I go and stay away from the boys. I don't want no boyfriend. You know, you have your friends, but I don't want to have any relationship with any boyfriend, or have any boyfriend, or to have any relationship with anyone. And so these were some of the things. So you have things that is either push you away from something and towards another thing. And that's what was happening. You know, it was what I saw in my community. I really did not want to be a part of it. And so it was really pushing me away and trying to research and to find out what is life on the other side. And having seen or having a glimpse of life on the other side, like I said, when I go outside, outdoors and go to different functions, I'll say, this is what I envision. How can I get to this place? And so those were some of the driving things for me to, you know, work towards aspiring my dream. And I found that as I worked each year and each moment, it's like I keep creating dreams and setting goals that one just keep pushing me and propelling me towards the other one. I also looked and I said, this is what I want. So irrespective of my mom not being able to afford to pay the school fee in terms of the university fee and otherwise, you know what? How can I push out and go? And I said, I cannot sing like others. These are things I would say to myself. I cannot sing like others. So I really can't go out there and be an entertainer to get the money. So what I'm going to do is that there are scholarships and there are grants. What does it take? And so I decided that on the academic end, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to apply for these scholarships. I'm going to apply for these grants so that I can achieve this. And I must add that one of my biggest motivators, and I remember it up to this day, was even though my mother didn't have the money, when she hears your dreams, she actually supports us. And so she said, I remember one day when she said to me, I don't know where to get the money from, and how me go find it, but you have to go. Let me tell you, up to this day, it resonates in my mind. And so for me, that was also a push. And it says to me that mommy is there and I'm doing something right. And so I kept pushing and kept pushing. Just having her to just sit and talk to and just share these moments, or just even hearing these words, because it's not like you could have, or you felt like you could have talked to mommy about anything. But in these instances, it really have pushed me to say, you know what? And I must say, when I've achieved the first degree, it was even, more an eye-opener. Well, and God did this. He can do it again. You understand? And so I kept moving from one to the next one, because I was like, okay, this was $100,000 a year faith, for example. Fine. He can find the 500,000. And I have a sister who's a Christian, and Stacey and Meredith, and that's one of the things. I remember one time I got a commitment letter in terms of for the school fees to be paid. At that time, we had Portia Simpson-Harris, the Prime Minister, and when she called and she spoke to me and told me, congratulations, we have awarded you X. And I said to myself, boy, Jasmine, we call her sister, that sister Jasmine, I was like, boy, Jasmine, I really don't, they haven't paid over yet. I haven't seen so-and-so yet in terms of any sign of the funds just now, and school is about to start. And her response, what you worry about it for? The Lord said, I'm going to pay it. You don't need to worry about that part. That was another push. And that those were the support that I needed. It didn't have to be money or so on, just some words of encouragement. And I'll tell you though, sometimes they are not there in terms of those words of encouragement. But as a songwriter said, sometimes you have to encourage yourself. And sometimes some things that you go through, maybe only you alone or your family is going through it with you. And we just had to encourage ourselves, and we wanted to do so well for mommy to be proud and to help our siblings. That those were some of my main motivators in terms of doing what I do. I started to want these things for myself as much as I wanted for them, and so I worked towards it.
I love it. I love the, as I said, the story of faith. We're having stories of faith, and in Hebrews 11, it talks about these heroes of faith. And they list them. And sometimes I think that in Christendom we get caught up in, Sarah believed by faith, Rahab believed by faith. Yes, we know that Abraham had faith and Noah had faith, but I want to see more. What about those people that I know, are people really living by faith now? And that's the purpose of this series, I want persons to know that faith makes things possible, right? Believing bigger for yourself, believing bigger. And I know, you spoke about the first degree, but tell us a little bit about, because I remember the testimony, even when you were writing the book, you had shared the testimony of you even getting into medical school, because you didn't get your first degree initially in medicine. You weren't even thinking about medicine at that time. It was more nutrition. And, like you said, there were so many days that your faith were shaken because, the school fee didn't come through in time, but you were able to go through and get your, become a doctor. So this girl from the inner city became a doctor. Her mom didn't have the school fee to pay. That don't make sense. So tell us a little bit about that testimony of God, with the school fee and the medical. But also, I want you to share a little bit, because you are now married. And I remember I was saying when we started the call, I remember when I don't think I'd left my job yet, actually. And you had came by the hotel in Moby to visit me, and you came by with your no husband, and you're like, boy, Crystal, I wasn't even thinking about husband at that time. I'm just trying to survive medical school right now, but God was so faithful. So tell us a little bit about, those two testimonies.
Once you have the time and is patient with me, I can take you through them all. So to begin with, my just even pursuing the first degree was faith itself. Because I remember applying for school. And when we applied for school in sixth form of the Convent of Mercy Academy Alpha, we oftentimes apply through the high school, whereas, you complete your application forms there and submit them to the office, and the office would have usually taken it in to the schools. So I remember doing the same. And I took the application was sent over. And in other words, I met the deadline. It was before the deadline was submitted. And of course, I did CXCs in fourth form prior to fifth form, and I also did CXCs in fifth form. So by this time, I have quite a bit of CXCs. And then I also had gone on to sixth form. So, we did Cape Maths, so you have Cape Maths results, and then most of the others were A-levels. So what happened? I realized that in the summer, prior to the summer, some persons were getting responses because some of them have gotten possibly early acceptance or something. Some have gotten through for their second choices. And so they were waiting again, haven't made a decision or confirmed because they wanted their first choice. And I'm listening and I'm looking and I'm watching and I'm not hearing Tameka and I'm not getting any mail. And I'm like, but how comes? And, I've gotten all these subjects, all these grades and so on, but nobody have called. And I was like quite confident that I have met the requirements. So anyhow, what had happened is that the summer was on. And remember, I talked to God like he's standing in front of me. Remember, that's a relationship we're supposed to have with him. So I'm saying, but God, how comes nobody don't call me as yet? So at this time, I decided that I'm going to find UTech. I've never been to UTech before because I was not the one who took it in. And I decided that I'm going to find UTech to find out what's happening because I was calling, and there was no response. So with no response, I decided that I'm going to go to UTech. I went to UTech. And when I found the office, I spoke with someone inside the office and I said, I'm Tameka Stephenson and I came to check on my acceptance because I've applied it. And I applied at that time for dietetics and nutrition, but I haven't gotten a response as yet. And many of my friends at school have gotten responses and I haven't heard anything. So the lady was like, what's your name again? And she said, okay, I'm going to ask someone to look. Anyhow, when she looked on the system for acceptance, she did not see me. But I was so bold, even up to this day, I don't know how that come because I was like so confident that I passed, that I should have gotten it through. That when the lady said she did not see me on the system, I said to her, but are you seeing me on rejection? Because I submit an application. And the lady said no. And these were my words. And if you're not seeing me on acceptance, then you should be seeing me you should be seeing me somewhere because I applied. And the lady was like, I don't know, but we have a stock of some items, some applications across from the table. I'm going to check them because I don't know. When she went, I asked her if I could come in and assist. So lo and behold, I'm inside the office now helping her to look. Can I tell you, she really didn't have to go too far. And when she took up the doc, I was like, dearest Tameka, when she took it up, she was like, but you see, it was not paid for. I said, no, it was paid for. My school stamped it, look through it or look at the back or something. As the lady flipped the back of it, there goes the stamp on it. And she was like, her word was like, oh Lord, what are we going to do with this one now? Because it was paid for, it was stuck away that it wasn't paid for. And someone right away said, what did she apply for? And she told her, and she was like, does she have 6 subjects? She said she have a lot more than 6 subjects. And she was like, but the director's right here. That was Mrs. Ear. She was like, and Mrs. Ear was like, she's accepted. So that was one of my first encounter there. And I was accepted, and they told me that they would have, and that was verbal. So they were like, they would send me an email, and I was at home now. I said, well, I get the word, but I haven't received the letter. Waiting, no letter. So I called until eventually they sent over the letter. But remember, I had no student loan, no nothing at all. So going through UTech itself was by faith, and I went and I applied for every scholarship there was. Every scholarship. I remember in first year when I was about to sit my exam, my second semester exam, because at this point in time, my mother was like, okay, she's going to pay it in parts. When she get the partner draw, she's going to put down something. So by this time, I'm telling you, the Lord favor me. He favors me so much that if you're a full-time student, according to them, your next half should have been due in January. But me as a full-time student, my next half on the paper, the receipt and the document was for me. So in January, when we are about to sit exam, Others are, scamming around and they are, trying to find information to provide the financial aid office, trying to get as much funds as they could together, trying to speak to different entities. And I was asking, what is the problem? And they're like, boy, I'm trying to get my other part of my school fee paid so that I can do the exam. Otherwise, they're not going to give you an exam card. And the list goes on. I was like, but it's not due right now. It's due in May. I never forget. May 7th was on my paper. They started to laugh at me. They said, my girl, this is what you know. I was like, no, I swear, man, was May 7th. And I went and I took the paper. It was May 7th. So I was calm now, going through because I am saying I have nothing to worry about because they gave me May 7th. Can I tell you that when I presented to the exam room, I've done some exams and I presented to this particular exam. I think it was organic chemistry. And the invigilator said, let me see your card. I showed him my card. And I will never forget this. The man said, what is this? Yeah, this was my response. $60,000. So I had $60,000 outstanding and I should not have gotten the exam card. I knew not, right? I had received the exam card. My outstanding balance was on the exam card till the gentleman telling me that I need to go back to accounts to have it settled. Exam is about to start, And I was like, okay. So I ran to accounts department and I eventually saw somebody who worked inside entering because it was empty initially at first. And I said, I have exam, it's about to start. And they sent me around here, so I need to set my balance, but I don't understand because I have no money, but I have the card. The lady was like, go back around there and tell them to allow it in the exam room because in the first place, you should not have the card, but you have the card, so they need to let you in. Can I tell you, Priscilla, when I went back around to do the exam, the gentleman was not even there. The person just said, go into that room and sit down, which was the exam room. And I sat the exam. And thanks be to God, was a success. And thereafter, I just applied for scholarships upon scholarships. And I remember once my aunt asked me, tell me how things. And I'm always saying I'm okay. I'm like, I'm all right. I say, oh, school. I said, it's good, I said, well, in fact, I've completed some application form. I said, Auntie, I've signed up all for business scholarships that they should see how desperate I am. One must fall through. That's what I told her. And lo and behold, it was like that. In fact, I got multiple at the stage and UTech Foundation scholarship had covered everything. And I just give God the glory for just coming through and I just continue to push through by faith. And in as much as we were not able to find that money, I said, you know what? I'm going to do my master's. I'm not even going to take a break. I said, God, I'm not ready to work. I am going back to school. Remember, I didn't have any money in the account, but yet I'm still going to school. And so I did the same thing. I applied before the undergrad was finished, as in my final year. And no one knew that I was doing that. My parents knew, but in terms of at my school. And I applied, got my recommendations and everything in. And girl, that was just the Lord moving again. Because can I tell you, again, school is about to start and no one called me. And somebody was like, Tameka, have you heard from you? I was like, no. I figured they haven't done the interview as yet. And they were like, what? Yeah, man. So it so happened that when I was checking in, the person said, but we didn't say the number to call you. I said, really, but the number is at the top. I said, my God, working mysterious ways. But I said, oh, comes the number is at the top of my resume. And when you fill out the application, it asks you for cell number, home number, work number. You cannot move to page 2 unless you have completed page 1. So that was unfathomable. But nonetheless, I tell you, the Lord, when the Lord He chooses how He wants to show up in our lives. And so they scheduled an interview because I was myself and maybe 2 other person were not able to meet the first interview. I don't know if they had a second one coming up and I just included me, but whichever way God worked it out and I was successful. But in the interview, the lady said to me, so how do you plan to fund this? By this time, I told her I was planning to go on the work and travel program and so forth. And I hope to fund it by that way. And I've applied for grants and scholarship. And the lady was like, but what if that doesn't work out? And this was my response to her. If plan A doesn't work out, I move to plan B. Crystal, I kid you not, I knew not what plan B would be. But I know I would have tried to figure something out as I go along. But I'm telling you, I had an answer. The Lord provided an answer for every line. And to top it all off, while I was pursuing that, I was in that interview, was that they were like, we don't have your transcript here. And I said, oh, can you not have my transcript? I applied for an express transcript. And they're like, but they're not seeing it here. So it was just my application, and by word of mouth, what I told them that my average was and would have been in completing based on my grades. And immediately after leaving there, I went to UTech to follow up on same. And of course, I asked them, okay, since it has not been sent over and I paid for this express for so long, can I at least get it and take it over? Which they said, okay, and I took it and delivered it. And Crystal, might I add that God just showed up while I was there because plan A did not work out. So I did not get to go on the work and travel program that summer. I just worked a regular summer jobs. And at that time, I was with Caribbean Food and Nutrition Institute and Tropical Metabolic Research Unit. And, I have a love for research, and I started to do my summer job there, but I never worked full time really. So it was just the summer. So, that would not have been enough. And when I worked for the summer, I was like, okay, mommy, are the school fees paid as yet? Are my siblings' shoes bought as yet? So I'll always be trying to find something to assist my mother with when I started working, because at that point in time, I was like, this can't pay my school fee anyhow. I'm still waiting for answers with grants and scholarships. Crystal, same thing happened. I went to an exam room and they came to me and told me the same thing about my exam. Like, they have a list of persons with outstanding fees who should not be sitting the exam. And I spoke with the lady. I tell him, thank you, Lord, for, allowing me to be able to just refocus. And I had a conversation, and then I was back at studying. That was one of our directors. And the Lord just really worked it out. I went through the exam, and then the second stage around for the final exam and the money, because remember I told you, I'm supposed to get the scholarship that our Prime Minister at the time had called and shared about. And so, they're like, the money is coming over. And I remember when I had to take the final exam, because part of it had been paid by this time now, and take the final exam, lo and behold, they come to me again. And the Lord just showed up, because by this time I reached to the registrar's office. And having gone to the registrar's office, she was willing to have a conversation with them that they were going to take the other portion in. And she was like, make sure, no problem, I'll allow her to do the exam. And so that's how the Lord has really been intervening. And can you believe it, that even after that, I still went on to study again? Yes, man. I said, I'm going to do my PhD, but what I want to do now is medicine. So I have the desire to become a doctor. I can remember from I was in 6th grade. But as I went through high school and I got to 6th form and nutrition was introduced, for some reason, I said, I'm going to become a nutritionist. But the thought of medicine never left me while I was pursuing it. It's like there was still this gap. It's like, okay, I have gotten to this stage and mastered these areas and I've gotten an advanced degree in it. But I still have that gap. I still have that emptiness that I need to fill, and that was to do medicine. As I tell persons, it's not to be called a doctor. That I would just go and do the PhD and not try to get into it. I was like, this is what I want. I will do the PhD after or during the time that I'm doing the if it was possible. And so I applied and I got through for the program. So moving on to pursue my medical degree, of course, would have posed a challenge, because by this time, though I've done these other programs, I was not working full time, but I would still do researches during the summer. And so I applied for medical school nonetheless. Having applied for medical school, immediately after I finished the master's, here comes another issue, because what was happening was that the degree was not yet granted. You completed your program, you submitted your assignment, but there's something on the system that whereas they need to actually maybe officially grant you whatever it is that they are doing on their back end. So it needs to be on the system for the other department to be able to actually do the acceptance. And so that was a challenge, because then I was like, okay, you can go in and start, but only that, it's like you'd be refusing to say that you have completed this master's that you have worked 2 hard years for. And I was like, no, definitely not. So essentially, the Lord had again taken me across the world in terms of research and interviews and doing presentations such as at conferences and poster presentation during this time. So I was the only one that was accepted to do this type of thing from my year group for the master's research thesis. And so it was quite encouraging to the medical department as well, because it's the Office of Medical Sciences. And so essentially, in pursuing the medical degree, I didn't have any money. I continued to work in terms of do some work with CariMed, where I go out in terms of their advertisement for their promotions, and I just continue to write for application for scholarships and grants. So I got some grants from NCB Foundation Scholarship, and I'm going to tell you, oh God, just show up, because again, it was fate that took me through, because they actually told me and refused for me to sit 2 exams, again, because of outstanding balances, because I kept going to school, showing up at exam, irrespective of not paying these things, because we didn't have the money to pay. It's not like we use the money to do something else. The school fee is over $2.7 million. And I was on the sponsored one, so already got an 80% sponsored, and now the 20% my family still could not find it. But the Lord continued to make ways. And so I continued to fast and pray. That was one of the next things that take me through. So I was fasting and praying, and I was still showing up for church. I was still, participating at the youth meeting or leading different groups where necessary. I was still teaching Sunday school, and the list may go on. So I did not drop the baton where that was concerned. Even when things got busy, you'd have just exchanged whether or not you'd have been able to be present. And so I still carried out those duties where my Christianity was concerned and my faith is concerned. So I'll just share this awesome moment of how God just showed up and revealed for me. I remember by faith going to the dean's office as well to share that, I am in the program. I have been consistent. I am seeking assistance. I just need some more time. I'm waiting on answers. And, right to this day, both him, Prof. Archie and Prof. Dave, we are really good friends, and God does work it out in the sense that they believed in me. They continue to wait, to encourage, and if they know of anything, and share. But I tell you how amazing God is, because one of the scholarship that I got that covers all of the medical tuition was the Advanced Integrated System Scholarship, where the owner, of course, Mr. Douglas Assal, they know a wonderful family that have taken me in as well. They actually, at that time didn't know of me or anything like that, but, granted the scholarship. And I'll tell you how amazing God is, because when first year school fee was not fully paid, and I couldn't sit all of my second semester exam because they had turned me back from 2, and I continued to study and to show up, because when I go to the exam, I must tell you that I am ready, because I would still go to the library, I would still study, and there are moments when you have a little doubt, because I remember one exam I was to show up for the exam, and 1 minute I'll be studying, and I like, I don't even know if they're going to allow me to go into one. I'm going to study because God is going to work it out. So, you had moments like those, and I had some strong persons in terms of support system. So it was very encouraging. But I'll share with you that God is so amazing that at one point in time, I got an answer that, look, we are going to cover the school fee. And I was like, what did I read right? Did I read right in my email? And I'm like, so God does work that out for the first year. And then they did not say, I'm covering you, Tameka, for the entire 5 years. So look, I am on the same venture and faithing it out again, putting the faith to work again for second year of medical school. And I remember one day going to the department again to say I'm going on a payment plan. I don't know what that could be now, because remember what I told you, my little money in terms of working a 1 or 2 day with CariMed, which I really, really appreciate. And they have also showed up and given a grant at CariMed. But it's the mere fact that that could not really suffice, nothing much in terms of I would get from them as salary. And so that was like a 4 times per week thing, per month. And so what that was doing was helping to an extent my rent, because I was renting somewhere. So by this time we had to move out of Village Town. So we're not there. And so I had to shoulder those responsibilities and still go to school. So let me tell you something, man, as well as with my siblings at home with me. And the Lord just took me through it, because one day I was going to discuss a payment plan, and I'm praying and talking to the Lord. And there goes the sponsor call again in terms of the owner call and say, and we're texting actually, and said, how are things coming on? How is school? And I'm like, I'm fine, and I'm actually making my way to the financial aid office now, because I don't even know how this year is gonna to take care of itself. And there was I, while I was walking, I was praying. I called my sisters to pray, I called my mother to pray. I didn't know what was going to happen now. And I remember one of my other church father, this was Michael, my brother Michael, I reached out to him and said, I'm asking you to help me pray as well. Can I tell you, these were all these messages were going simultaneously. He responded, I was Brother Michael, and said, what an interesting time that you text me, because for some reason I'm at home today and I'm fasting. And so I was in prayer when you called, but I will definitely be praying for you, and I'm on it. And I said, thank you. Then, of course, I told that I was texting the sponsor, and we're just having conversation. And when I said that I was heading to the office, I was like, how much is this year's school fee? And I was like, I shared the other 20%, it was 500 and something thousand at the time. And he said, okay. So by this time, when I finished at the office and I went home, and when I went home, because I had nothing to share with them, because I didn't really have anyone in my family who's working in a particular position to use as no guarantor to assist or so forth. So by this time, I reach home and I'm going down the stairs, the hill, and the tears went down my face. I'm talking to the Lord. And I said, God, I thought you were going to show up for me, because might I tell you that I got you for 2 other medical schools that I did not take up those. I got you to Cuba, and I got you for the offshore university here in Jamaica. And I did not take up those. And the strong recommendation that I got was for UE. And I needed to listen to hear if I was going to hear from you, which I did. And I'm saying I failed it out, because these other institutions were giving me scholarship, and I did not hear about any scholarship for you at the time. The person said, I want the best for you, just as I would have wanted for my son. And that's what I would have recommended for my son. Somebody who is seasoned in the system. And I was like, okay, thank you. I said, God, I thought you were going to come through for me. And can I tell you, when I was at home, I went home and I went down on my knees and down on my face, and I was crying and talking to the Lord. And my phone was just beeping with the 2 different person and myself communicating, where the person, Brother Michael, texted me and said, it's already done. Listen carefully. And then the sponsor texted me and said, Tameka, go by the office later on this evening for the check. That was the school fee on a check paid in full. And that was like, I was like, oh my God. Like when the man said it's already done, and then the next person come and said, go and collect the check. It was paid in full. And so they have sponsored me throughout for the entire period thereafter. And so I really just give thanks for the different companies and different individuals who just continue to support and just to show up as it relates to that. So, this is in a nutshell. There's so many other areas where I had to extend my faith, but in a nutshell, that was one of the things. And of course, I didn't have to worry about where my school fee was coming from thereafter. And soon after, also what they did was also to send also in terms of accommodation, rent. And so I didn't have to, they also wanted me to focus on school, and they're like, I love what you're doing, and you're doing a good job. We just wanted to focus on school and complete, and I did the best that I could. And, in terms of, as Crystal have shared and asked about my husband, so yes, I was not thinking about anyone at all. I was just going through from school to school to school. In fact, persons will be talking to me and I say, Tameka, I just always see you alone. You don't have a little boyfriend, you don't have somebody you can drive with, because, I would be driving alone. And I said, one year I remember a colleague of mine said, if I find such a one as yet, or who is the groom. And I said, I'm waiting on the groom to be groomed by God. And I cannot say anything other than that the Lord has definitely groomed my groom because by faith, in terms of just leaving it all to God, the Lord sent him my way. I did not go seeking, and I would encourage persons and young Christians, because quite a bit of persons have come to me or have seen certain things, and I would say, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. That was one of my favorite scriptures. And when I kept having desires and dream for these things and goals, I remember, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all other things shall be added unto you. And I held on to that and I said, God, I'm going to seek you. That means that the house, the land, the car, the husband, everything, you are going to provide it, which he certainly did on time, before time, in his time. And so the Lord sent a wonderful Christian man my way, and I just want to thank the Lord that he's a man of God. And that's one of the things that I said. I said, I don't want a Christian, I want a man of God, because so many persons are going out there just with the label, but we are not living. And I said, I want a man of God. I said, I may not be able to list out all the things that I would want in a husband. I know certain things I would not want, but more so, if I get a man of God, then he will be the best fit for me. And that's what, when you saw us, as you said, at that time we're engaged. Since then, we are happily married and so grateful for the Lord being the center of our life, and him just continue to make room as always and to make great provision. And my little one.
Listen, Tameka, I want to thank you, even as we close off today, because your testimony alone, is just a testament of God's faithfulness. And, one of the things that I want persons to take away, that, God could have just made, in one moment she prayed and provide all that she needed in one moment. But in every single step, even when she didn't get to do the exam, she kept in faith. Even when it looked bleak, she kept in faith. Even when God didn't come through in that moment, you kept in faith. And I think that's a story of what faith looks like. Yes, sometimes faith looks like God sending all the miracles one time. And then there are times when he's asking you to trust him by faith in every single step. They always have faith is taking one step at a time, even though you don't see the whole staircase. They always say that. So I believe that that's what this testimony of faith is a blessing to you for, just to remember that in every moment, just keep the faith, just keep going. So Tameka, as we close, is there any, takeaway or any encouragement that you want to share with persons regarding their faith?
Well, I just want to share the scripture. Faith is the evidence of the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And it was evident that I did not see, I did not know what the outcome would have been. I did hope for it to be one of a good one, but at the same time, sometimes when you are not able to see the end of the tunnel, when you're not able to see around the corner, it can be so easy to let go and to throw in the towel. But remind yourself of your whys, and faith is out unless the Lord, while you're there hanging on to faith, the Lord speak to you and say, no, this is not what I want for you, because we have to be careful where that is concerned as well. If the Lord gives you the go ahead, you hope and dream and pray for it, and he has not said, no, it is not for you, be determined, be resilient in your pursuit for that which you hope for. And it is also very important, and I'm very passionate about this one, even as it relates to relationship, because I know and I've heard it a lot. And some have come to me and say, you know what? I feel like I'm getting old. I'm telling you, there is no old to the game. Do what you need to do and can do for yourself. You can do anything by yourself with Christ. And so you don't need the husband to get the house, land, car, to complete the exam, to complete the course or stuff, or to even enjoy life. Get to know yourself while you are there alone. Enjoy your own company until the Lord send he or she. Because remember, the enemy is also there hearing and listening and know some of these desires and lusting that you're doing. And sometimes the wrong one presents itself, and because of that hunger and that desire, you don't even realize that what is in front of you is a bad fruit. So I would encourage everyone, while you have extend your faith, is to wait upon the Lord and be of good courage. He is definitely going to reward you. Remember, he said, seek ye first. And I know you're listening because you are a believer. If you're not a Christian as yet, you are a believer. You believe that, the Lord is able, God is able, or you are looking for some answers. Just continue to trust God, depend upon him, and he will work it out. This God of mine continues to blow my mind. And so I continue to extend my faith. I said, God, if you give me one, you can give me two. If you give me two, you can give me three. So that's my encouragement to you today. Whatever you ask of him, whatever your needs are, he will supply. Just continue to depend upon him.
Amen. So that's it, guys. I hope that your faith is encouraged for somebody that's believing God for school fee, or you're believing God not just for your school fee, but probably for another family member or even your child's school fee. Or you're believing God for your dreams too. Whatever that dream could look like. I pray that this podcast this week will encourage you. So we'll see you next week for another episode of the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast. Tune in next Thursday as we will have another faith building story from another amazing person. Right? So have a great day.
Diary of a Jesus Girl. Jesus Girl. Hey, it's the Diary of a Jesus Girl.